Scrolling through feeds has become second nature for a lot of us. I sometimes catch myself reaching for my phone without even thinking about it. How do you feel about just how woven social media is into our daily routines?
Honestly, it's wild. I can't remember the last day I didn't check Instagram, even just for a few minutes. It's almost like brushing your teeth or making coffee. It's just part of the rhythm now. But I do wonder how we got here so quickly.
Same. I remember when checking emails felt high-tech, but now there's this constant stream of updates. What do you think pulled us all in so fast? Was it just the tech or something else?
I think it's a mix of things. The design is super addictive, with those endless scrolls and notifications, but there's also that social side wanting to feel connected, or just not wanting to miss out. It's a clever combination.
That actually reminds me of the way social media can bring people together, but it also seems to fuel a lot of comparison and insecurity. Have you ever caught yourself comparing your life to someone else's highlight reel?
All the time! It's so easy to forget that most people only post their best moments. I'll see someone's vacation photos and start feeling like I'm missing out, even though 5 minutes earlier I was totally satisfied with my own day.
It messes with your perspective, doesn't it? Sometimes I have to remind myself that what I'm seeing is just a tiny, curated slice of real life.
Totally. And on the flip side, I've actually found new communities and friends through social media that I never would have met otherwise. It's this weird mix of good and bad, all rolled into one.
Jumping off that, I've read so many studies lately about social media's impact on mental health. There's growing evidence it can increase anxiety or loneliness, but it also connects people who might otherwise feel isolated. What's your take?
It's a tricky balance. Like, I love that I can reach out to friends anytime, but I've definitely noticed days when I feel worse after scrolling. Sometimes it's just information overload or seeing too much negativity.
Yeah, the doom scrolling spiral is real. But then again, in tough times like during lockdowns, social media was a lifeline for staying in touch. It really depends on how you use it.
Exactly. I've started being more mindful, muting certain accounts, setting time limits, things like that. It's not perfect, but it helps me keep things in check.
Funny you say that, because another thing that's exploded with social media is just how fast news and misinformation can spread. Sometimes it feels like one rumor can go viral overnight.
What surprises me most is how convincing some fake stories can seem when they're shared by people you trust. I've definitely had to double-check things before passing them on.
Same here. I've even caught myself almost believing wild headlines before catching the small print. It takes real effort to separate fact from fiction these days.
It really does. I think media literacy should be taught way earlier in schools. Just knowing how to spot a reliable source could save so much confusion and even conflict in the long run.
After all that, I keep thinking, what's the best way to actually enjoy social media without letting it take over your life? Got any go-to strategies that work for you?
Lately, I've been scheduling tech-free time every evening. Just leaving my phone in another room for an hour or two helps me unwind. It's actually refreshing once you get past the initial habit of reaching for it.
I love that. I've tried something similar, turning off notifications, so I only check apps when I want to, not just because my phone buzzed. Makes a huge difference.
And even just unfollowing accounts that don't make me feel good can be a game changer. Social media isn't going anywhere, but we can at least tweak how we interact with it.
I was reading the other day that English is spoken by over 1.5 billion people worldwide. That number floored me. It's almost a fifth of the planet. How did English get so widespread, do you think?
It's wild, isn't it? Part of it goes back to history. Britain's colonization spread the language all over. But I think movies, the internet, and international business have really cemented its place in recent decades.
Totally. You can find English menus in tiny cafes in remote towns, and it's almost become the default language online. Do you remember your first time using English in a real spontaneous situation?
Oh, I do. I was traveling in Greece, and I ended up helping a group of tourists order food because I spoke a bit more. It felt like having a secret passcode the way everyone switched to English to connect.
That makes me think about how quirky English can be. I mean, we have words that are spelled nothing like they sound, like kernel or Q. It must be a nightmare for people learning it from scratch.
I know what you mean. English is packed with odd rules and exceptions. Like, why does though sound nothing like through? Or why is red pronounced two ways? It keeps learners on their toes.
If anything, it almost feels like a puzzle sometimes. Even native speakers get tripped up by things like there, and there.
Honestly, I still triple check effect versus effect. The rules can be so inconsistent that you just have to memorize a bunch of them. But that's also what makes English kind of fun.
Something else I love is how English is like a giant sponge. It borrows words from everywhere. Kindergarten from German, safari from Swahili, even emoji from Japanese.
Exactly. And that's why the language keeps evolving. Every year, there are new words and slang popping up. Think about how we started saying selfie or binge watch. Those didn't even exist a couple decades ago.
It's kind of like a living organism, always changing shape. I wonder if that's why it adapts so well in different cultures.
That's a good point. English is almost like Lego you can keep snapping new pieces on, and it still works. People mold it to fit their needs, whether they're in Silicon Valley or a village in India.
On the flip side, I've seen so many hilarious moments when people try to master English idioms. Like when someone says, "It's raining cats and dogs," and the listener looks genuinely worried.
Haha, yes. Or when someone takes break a leg literally. Idioms are probably one of the trickiest parts because they never mean what they say. There's a lot of room for comedy, for sure.
I think the best approach is to just dive in and make mistakes. Sometimes those blunders become the most memorable or even heartwarming stories.
Couldn't agree more, and usually people appreciate the effort. Plus, a shared laugh over a silly mistake can break the ice faster than perfect grammar ever could.
Thinking ahead, do you think English will stay this influential? With technology translating in real time, some folks predict language won't matter as much.
I get that argument, but I feel like knowing English still unlocks so many doors. Even with great tech, there's nuance and culture in language that machines can't quite catch.
That's true. Reading a book or having a conversation in the original language just feels different, more personal and rich. Maybe technology will help, but it can't replace that connection.
And with English being such a connector across countries, I think it'll stay central for a while yet. Maybe the way we use it will change, but its role as a bridge isn't going away soon.
You know, every time I step into a kitchen, I'm flooded with memories of my first attempts at cooking. I remember burning toast so badly, even the dog refused it. Did you have any classic kitchen disasters growing up?
Oh, I've had my fair share. My first big fail was trying to make instant noodles without water. I thought it would cook faster. Spoiler, it just smoked up the place. But honestly, those early mistakes taught me a lot about what not to do.
It's always the wild experiments that stick with us, isn't it? I used to mix random spices and hope for the best, but most often it just turned into a weird, inedible mush.
Totally! I think experimenting is part of the fun, though. Even if it doesn't taste great, you learn something every time, like maybe cinnamon doesn't belong in spaghetti.
After all those early misfires, was there a moment when you started feeling confident in the kitchen? I remember finally nailing pancakes and feeling like a chef.
Actually, for me, it was mastering scrambled eggs. It sounds simple, but getting them perfectly fluffy took some serious trial and error. But that first success felt amazing. I even bragged to my roommates.
That's the best. There's something about conquering the basics that gives you the courage to try bigger things. For me, YouTube tutorials were a game changer. Seeing someone break down each step made cooking feel way less intimidating.
I'm with you. Watching someone physically do it helps so much, especially when they share those little tricks you'd never read in a recipe. Like, who knew letting your meat rest actually makes a difference?
On busy nights, what's your fallback meal? I always seem to default to pasta with whatever veggies are left in my fridge.
Honestly, stir-fry is my lifesaver. You can toss anything in a pan with a splash of soy sauce and it just works. Plus, it uses up those odds and ends before they go bad.
I love that approach. It's like kitchen Tetris trying to fit everything together before the clock runs out. Sometimes those thrown-together meals turn out better than planned.
Definitely. There's a certain magic in improvising with what you have. It keeps things interesting and, let's face it, saves a trip to the grocery store.
You know, one of the biggest challenges I've faced is working in a tiny kitchen. Chopping veggies with barely enough space feels like a balancing act.
I feel your pain. My old apartment kitchen barely had enough counter for a cutting board. I started stacking bowls and using the stovetop as extra prep space. Definitely not glamorous, but it worked.
That's some next-level resourcefulness. I got into the habit of cleaning as I go, just to keep the chaos in check. Makes cooking less stressful, even if the space is limited.
Cleaning as you go is a total game changer. I also found that using fewer dishes like mixing batters right in the pan cuts down on cleanup and clutter.
Funny enough, some of my favorite kitchen moments are when friends or family join in. There's just something about cooking together that makes meals taste better.
Completely agree. My fondest memories are big family dinners, everyone chopping, stirring, or sneaking bites. Sharing the process always makes the food feel more special.
Even messing up a recipe is more fun when you're with people who laugh about it with you. I think those shared flops stick with you just as much as the culinary wins.
Absolutely. The kitchen is such a hub for connection. Whether you're celebrating, catching up, or just bonding over burnt cookies, it's all part of the experience.